in one of the many videos I've done detailing the extraordinarily fucked up childhood I had, this person left the following comment. I am so sorry your childhood was filled with terror. Broken heart emoji. And what they're referencing is the stories that I've told about some pretty severe physical child abuse I suffered at the hands of my mother, not my father, between the ages of 8 and 13. My parents got a divorce when I was 8, and that's when the beating started. And I ran away from my mother's home at 13 to go live with my father, and that's when the beatings ended. And this person is saying that she's sorry that I lived in terror. And I appreciate the kind words. I truly do. This is not a clapback video. This is just it's easier to respond in video format type of video. And I appreciate everybody that's ever expressed condolences or regret for something that I had to go through as a child. I just wanted to say this. That's where it stays. It's in my childhood. Because when I turned 13, and I knew this from all the shit my parents had gone through and just listening and paying attention when they got divorced and all the legal battles back and forth. I don't know if it's the same way now, but at the time in the state of Illinois, when you turned 13, if you were the child of divorced parents and one parent had custody of you, when you turned 13, you could determine where you wanted to live. You could say, I don't care that she has custody, I want to live with my father. Or I don't care that he has custody, I want to live with my mother. So when I turned 13, I made the decision to run away from my mother's home. My father had always kept his phone number written on a piece of paper in the battery section of my boombox. Remember, this was back in the day when we had boomboxes. So that if I ever needed to call him from anywhere, I could call him from the paper in that battery section. That's what I did. I ran away from my mom's home. Several miles away, I got to a payphone, called my father, told him where I was, and he came and picked me up. And I never lived with my mom again until I was a young adult, trying to reconcile with her, and it didn't last very long. But that's the point, is that's where that shit remains for me. It doesn't go away. You know what I mean? You don't forget about it. You can't forget being 10 years old and cowering in the corner as your mom just fucking punched the shit out of you. Right? You don't ever forget that. That doesn't go away. But you can keep it right there. You can keep it in your past. You can keep it put away. And it doesn't have to, and it probably does, but it doesn't have to have a negative effect on you as an adult. I'm sure what I went through as a kid had some form of effect on me as an adult in some way, shape, or form. But I don't live in terror anymore. And I know that's not what you were saying. It's just easier for me to kind of say this. I don't live in terror anymore because when I was a fucking teenager, before I could fucking drive a car, I made the conscious decision that I wasn't going to let anybody terrorize me anymore. And when you have to make that decision about one of your own parents, a family member in general, let alone one of your own parents. This isn't like I was getting bullied at school and I wasn't going to take it anymore. And one day I decided I was going to stand up to my bullies and that was going to be the end of that. I had to make a conscious decision not to be terrorized anymore by my own mother. And when I made that decision, and I made that decision before I actually ran away. But when I made that decision in my head, when I said, all right, I got to start thinking about how I'm going to do this, she couldn't terrorize me anymore. There was a period in time towards the end of that era in my life when I was still taking beatings, but I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I lived a lot of years wondering if I was going to survive the beating I was getting in the moment because they were that fucking bad. But when I got to that age, when I got to that teenage age, and I was gonna make this call myself, I would just take the beatings knowing that very, very soon she wasn't going to be able to hit me anymore. And so I would just Take it. I didn't fear if I was going to survive that beating because I had gone through enough of them that I knew I was going to survive that one. I didn't fear that she was going to come back and beat me again because I knew she was. Until I got out, I knew I was going to be susceptible to more beatings. But I also knew I was getting ready to get out. I also knew that I was going to put an end to that fucking terrorism in my life. And at 13, that's exactly what I fucking did. I made the decision to say there wasn't going to be another motherfucker that was going to lay their hands on me. There wasn't going to be another motherfucker that was going to determine how my life was going to go. And there wasn't going to be another motherfucker that caused me to live in terror. Ever. And I haven't allowed it since. And so to the folks out there that lived in terror as a child like I did, I know it's fucking hard to do and easy to say. But leave that shit right there. Leave that terror in your past. Because that's where it fucking belongs. It has no place in your life today. What my mother did to me has no place in my life today. The only thing that I experience now in regards to my mother is content joy. Because that fucking bitch is dead. She's no longer breathing. Her heart is no longer beating. She can no longer lie and harm people with her bullshit anymore on any capacity. So the only feeling I have towards my mother is content joy that she is finally fucking dead. And as I've stated in other videos, my mother died presumably in her sleep, in a literal pile of filth. Have you ever seen those homes where it's just garbage on top of garbage? That was her. And nobody heard from her for a minute. My aunt sent my brother over to find her dead in her bed. And so the content joy that I have is because she's no longer breathing. However, the elation, perhaps is the word, that I choose to feel, the euphoria I choose to feel every now and again, is whenever I do take a moment and think about her demise and think to myself that hopefully, when the attack that took her life started to come on, when she woke up from her sleep, presumably, and realized something's happening, this holy shit, and she reached out into the darkness for something, anything, my elation comes from the idea that hopefully when that happened, she reached out into that darkness, she felt nothing, and in that moment, she knew that there was nobody that was going to help her. Like I knew there was nobody that was going to help me every time that fucking cunt laid hands on me again. And I hope that her last moments on this planet, before she drew her last breath, were filled with that very same terror that she instilled in me every time she came at me again. I hope in her last minute and a half on this planet, as she was gasping for air and wondering what she was going to do to survive, her life, her body, her mind was awash with terror. Because that's justice.